All right, call to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Bornaro?
Here.
Mr. Fernandez? Mr. Grady?
Here.
Ms. McNair? Mr. Millard?
Here.
Mr. Paradis?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, Jerry, you want to add?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda for tonight or. Sorry. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda for tonight to add an item not previously on our agenda. You have a handout on it. The council approved this transfer last night. This is sort of a time-sensitive item from what I'm understanding from the golf course. This is the time of year to buy used equipment. And to wait till our next meeting, they felt was too long, so they asked if we could get it onto our agenda for tonight. So I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to transfer $35,000 from the pickup truck account to the greens mower account that's within the CNR fund. Kevin?
Yes, both. Yes, both are.
Discussion? Got it. Okay, so those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Jerry can play golf for the rest of the summer.
They can cut the greens.
Okay. Let's discuss budgets. I guess before we get into the Board of Education, is there any other items that we want to talk on general government?
Capital?
Capital, right, capital. So Kevin did put a piece of paper together here. Well, I guess you did both the Board of Education change and capital as a second.
The first part would be if you didn't cut any of the capital.
Gotcha.
Second section is if you removed all the capital.
Okay. I mean, I haven't changed my position with respect to, I believe we should use fund balance to cover the capital like we did last year. It still puts us in about the 14% range of available fund balance. After you take out, the 1.3 million, so that's where I'm at with respect to, the capital. Any other comments?
Would we be on track, Kevin, to have a 14% next year? Or it
Yeah.
depends on interest rates, basically.
Yeah, it would be about that for the
Okay.
end of the year.
As I'm new here, I know that I'm probably in the minority saying that I'm not a fan of cutting all the capital from budgets year after year. I think that it's a better policy to try to fund capital every year to some extent possible and look at maybe instead of cutting all of the capital, maybe looking at the individual requests. I appreciate that if we don't cut the capital at this point, it may get cut by the council later afterwards anyway, but I just want to be on record that I don't agree with that way of budgeting for a town. I think that it's good to do a little each year so that it doesn't hit you all at once.
I think, we've seen in the last 6 years, we've been funding capital by fund balance. I think that's probably going to continue for a little longer until we don't have any fund balance to do it. We have been fortunate to have fund balance the last few years in order to do it. The only item or the only thing that I would say is I did mention last week about there is one item in the capital budget that when they put the revenues from the golf course against the expenditures of the golf course, there's an item in capital for a mower for $67,359, which is essentially paid by revenues generated through the golf course. So I would suggest that when we look at that, we cut all of it except that, since it's not coming out of taxpayer funds anyways.
I mean, that's reasonable. I mean, we've had surpluses every year that have more than covered
Mhm.
what we had put in for capital, so it's not like we're not funding the projects. I think cutting the capital this year would probably be a good process again.
Other comments?
I'm not a fan of using fund balance, but it is what it is.
I mean,
Either we cut it here or town council may cut it, so.
just from a historical standpoint, you know, I know this is your first year from, there has been several $1 million of fund balance, excess fund balance, what I call, every year. And to go to the taxpayers and say, we're gonna increase your taxes, you know, when we got $3-4 million of additional, you know, opportunity money that comes out of every year, I just can't do that. And then last year, we also dealt with the, you know, the revaluation that people, you know, a lot of people got hit hard, you know, with the revaluation. Over 75% of homeowners had at least an average of 3.43% increase because of the revalue. I know your house evaluation went up, but they got impacted by it, so.
I don't disagree that there's been the surpluses or funds unexpended at the end of years. I think that's somewhat fortuitous. I also think that that goes to how people are preparing their budgets. I think that it's gotten a little bit, I don't want to say out of hand on the thought that the finance board will cut their budget so that there's some funds that may not be necessarily trimmed by the departments as they go along. I'm also saying that I'd rather see something like 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. It doesn't have to be the $1.3 million that's been requested, but if so much was put aside every year, there would be that fund for capital items yearly. And then that would be the fund for which the departments could look at for that.
I mean, I think as a board of finance, that's where we want to be, seriously, you know, that's where we want to be. But I don't think this year I want to be there, so. So,
Does it,
go ahead.
does it matter? I mean, is some of it optics? Does it matter if we left it in and put more fund balance in the revenue side?
From a tax standpoint, there would be no impact. to that.
Right, I mean, there would be no impact. I mean, it'd be the same as taking it out and then funding it out of fund balance. Instead, we're directly saying we're gonna fund it out of fund balance, you know?
Exactly.
I don't know what that means from an optics perspective to people looking at it.
That's how most towns would do it, because otherwise you're coming back and essentially either doing a late fiscal year end transfer, or as we did last year, a non-budgeted appropriation, which is a multi-meeting process to go through it. So leaving the capital and choosing that as a mechanism to fund would reduce your mill rate. I think you'd have to do that in concert with the council so that everybody's kind of in agreement that this is how it would be left. It mathematically would be the same thing.
I just know last year we took some flack from people thinking that we weren't gonna fund any capital whatsoever. I don't know, but
We've never said that. You know, we always said that there's funding left over to cover, you know, the priority.
I know we say it, but there's a lot of people don't hear what we say.
There's a lot of people that don't show up to any of these meetings
Yeah,
and
I
then they hear
understand.
things through secondhand.
It
And,
becomes a political football too.
Second hand,
Throwing it out as.
the third, fourth, and fifth.
yeah,
hand.
I mean,
I don't know. That's why I threw it out on the table. Didn't say it was stick.
Red button.
Yep.
I'm not used to this fancy stuff they have here at the council. You know. I'd like to put a motion on the table then. I'd like to remove all capital except for the mower of $67,359 from the budget.
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed?
Majority win, well, majority, thinks, okay. To that point, Denise, I guess, we didn't have a meeting, Monday. And one of the things that I wanted to do was challenge the town side and see if they can come up with $200,000 of reductions. I know this is the last evening before, our referendum, our budget forum. And so I thought, since I don't want to just give you a blanket $200,000, okay? I did, identify some items. One is probably a stretch. But I'll give you the items and then we could talk about it. To reduce. Okay. Under Public Works, I'm saying take out 50,000 out of the storm-related overtime. Out of school expense, cut the contractual services by 50,000. Yes, 3561, yep. Again, on school expense, 3561, cut the operating materials by 50K. These were all on my list that I had, okay? And because I'm still confused on, police station, police department overtime, I initially, put a 50,000 reduction on overtime on police station because I just feel that I just didn't get a good explanation of why the overtime is changing and so forth. And we're increasing to a full staff. Something's got to give on the overtime eventually. So that's the total of the 200,000 that I came up with. So this is up for discussion.
What was your second item?
The Department 3561 contractual services.
What's in?
Um, so. Hold on. Right, my sheets here. Oops. Give me a minute, Jer. I should just look at it in the book. Right. I don't know exactly what everything's in there, Jer. but
But it's 35, budget 35, or you're looking for 35.
yeah, 50,000, but, yeah.
Each one is 50, right? So,
Oh,
so 50 from storm-related overtime, 50 from schools contractual services, 50 from schools operating.
To cut these, not add
Right.
anything back
Right, there was,
like capital.
there was $500,000 in that line item.
My concern about doing it now, and I think that relates to Doug Solik, his department, and I'm not sure that he could speak to what that is for. I'm a little uncomfortable at this stage doing it with those two accounts.
I mean, what we did last year, normally if we had time, say,
Yeah,
take the 200K and see what you can come up with.
Yeah.
And you may not come up with the 200K, but,
Because we can change the numbers still after the public hearing,
okay.
right? Right. We take a final vote after the public hearing to send it down to the council.
Yes, there's a, right after the hearing.
We still have opportunity if there's items that you only got partial response on. I heard you talking when
Right.
it came in about
Yep.
you only got partial response.
and I think the storm-related overtime I could go along with because we've been lucky these last couple of years.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean next year will be the same, but we can always use contingency or something else for that.
Would you want to do 150 now and wait for the 50K for the police department after,
Or do
The meeting?
100 now.
if they can't, but if you like the explanation, obviously.
If a road can move these numbers around by the next meeting and come up with $200,000 too, that would be,
Like a different scenario.
Yeah, but I'd like to know too, what's in that 50,000
Yeah.
contractual
Yeah.
services in Department 61.
What do you mean by what's in it?
Well, what does he have planned? Like, is it earmarked certain things like 25 for
Recurring
this?
contracts or? is it-
There's a
Yeah.
number of recurring contracts.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got boiler inspection, you've got elevator
I mean,
inspections, you've got a
If I
lot of
look in
things.
the detail of the budget page, is it gonna tell me the 500?
I don't think it
I didn't,
is.
you know, you just brought it up now. So-
I think we just the line item.
Yeah, I think it was just a line item.
Well, there's one budget that has backup for.
Yeah, just a line.
Yeah.
Doesn't really get you much.
it's all done.
Yeah,
Previous years.
Different,
Yeah, that-
services.
That's the stuff I wanna know what it is.
Okay.
yes, I thought he saw he was. But that's kind of heck.
I mean, it looks like in general, it was just moved from category contractual services to contractual services public grounds, right? It was 414 in the current year and
Well,
nothing in the,
Talking
Just to be clear, public grounds budget actually was reduced by an amount because grounds had been supporting the schools, as they always have, through the budget that they currently have. That money was then pulled out and put into Department 61 because it was work
Okay.
that they're doing at the schools. Grounds mows the lawns, but they take care of the grounds that are there. Basketball, tennis courts, and work that needs to be done at the high school, the Skyglio Field, all of those. So the attempt there was to pull it out of the public grounds budget and put it into Department 61, so it's identified as a school expense. Part of that is we have a responsibility at the end of the year to submit school expenditures to the state, so they would know the full picture. Being able to budget it this way allows grounds to charge materials, contractual services, and the difference would be buy materials and our staff does the work. Contractual services, we would hire someone to do the work. Sometimes there's a bounce between those two because there may be the intent, for example, for staff to do the work, but then somebody might get injured or be out and we have to hire somebody, or conversely, we go to hire somebody and realize we can do it in-house if we buy the materials, sometimes faster and much bigger savings. I mean, the most pronounced example probably in the last few months of that was the Pistol Creek bridges, where we could have hired outside for several, tens of thousands of dollars more. The grounds crew bought the operating materials and did the work. So that's a bit of the interchange between there. But that's why grounds is in there because it had historically not been spiked out that.
well, what was in, I guess I'm not understanding the line items, because I mean, like I said, in contractual services, you budgeted in 24, 414,000 and 0 in 25.
It went to a different line item.
Well, I know, but but that doesn't go with the argument that was just made, does it? That it,
At 414.
right, it was already in this, it was already in 3561. No,
No,
then I don't, what was the 414?
If you go to public grounds budget, you probably should see a 400 something thousand dollars, 24 budget, but has 0 for 25.
yeah, the 414 in contractual services related to facilities, not grounds. $10,000 of grounds came from from the grounds department down into 61. Facility spends considerably more on contractual services. As you can imagine, it costs quite a bit more to maintain the building than it does.
I understand what you're saying about a move, I just don't understand. So if I move it from A to B, what was it in A before? I just want to know, was it $500,000 last year? Was it?
It was 414.
414 relates to the 500,000.
Okay, so this is a
And-
fairly large increase. That's what I was trying to get at.
Again, I mean, I'm
It had to do with materials going up and some of the labor costs coming in higher, but I do think Doug's online there. Hate to put him on the spot, but maybe if I can get him to comment, that'll be helpful. Doug, can you hear us? Ah, there you are.
Good evening, Roche. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. How are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, it's just, this year, I know that the past few years, I hate to say surplus, but we haven't been able to expend all funds. We have many known contracts where all the rates are going up, all our materials are going up. Our workload has been increased. We have a full staff now. The preventative maintenance is much more aggressive. We have aging infrastructure, less funding in capital, and excuse me, now that our capital threshold is 25,000, a lot more maintenance and repair items are coming out of our operational budget. So, we're seeing a lot more burden on the department, on the buildings, and the costs are going up. So, this year we got hit pretty hard. If you look at where we're tracking this year, we're gonna expend pretty much everything we have. We get hit. We never know what's gonna break, when it's gonna break. We have our fixed costs that are known embedded into the budget, but there's also the operational contingency that when things break, we're able to repair them in a timely manner. So there's a lot of increases we've seen. We've been fortunate the past few years, but with the known conditions and what we've been presented with costs, fees, contracts, labor rates, everything across the board has gone up. It would be irresponsible for me to tell you we don't not need any more money, or we're not going to spend any more in years past. So just wanted to get that point out there, and certainly understand if we can save anything, we will, but it's been very challenging. Preventive maintenance is much more aggressive. We have a lot more aging infrastructure, and we have a lot more technology and equipment in the buildings, which require a lot more maintenance, a lot more contracted service, and a lot more cost to operate annually. So appreciate your consideration for anything that you can leave with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Okay. I mean, I picked these because, I just picked, 200,000. I said, take this. And I'm not saying I was right in all these categories. You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
mean, you have done budgets before, right? I mean, the whole thing is it's a best guess at this point. Are you saying if we have emergencies and elevators don't function, we come back to you and ask for the contingency money to be released?
That's always been the case, sure.
I mean,
That would be the same with this, with the police overtime. If they can come back and say that this is why we need the extra money. We certainly have the money in fund balance to cover these smaller numbers.
Would this 200,000 or even 100, if you were to take just the storm-related overtime and the police overtime, would that make that much of a difference to the mill rate?
No.
So at this point, I'm a little reluctant to just do it. I understand and I appreciate where it's coming from, but
less than 1/10 of a mil, right?
Say that again?
Less than 1/10 of a mil.
Yeah. I mean, budgets are normally a little on the high side, let's put it this way, so we really haven't except for, taking out the full-time ACO and a couple, a bunch of revenue items, we really haven't really touched the town budget, from the expenditure standpoint. So I'm just challenging,
Yeah. Remember, I hammered the budget before it got to you. I showed you the numbers. If you look at what the manager submitted, over $1.3 million, we knocked it off, right? So, I mean, this is not the preferred mode, but if you want to take things out and come back to you and have in contingency, I mean, it's your call.
I would also remind everybody that at the end of the day, that the general government budget increased 0.6% last year. So as you continue to see inflation, as you continue to see labor costs go up, agree or disagree, there's contractual wage increases embedded because we've agreed to the union contracts, and just to retain people. They're not going to stay for the same price. It's been 2% or less for the last several years, while inflation has been much higher. And we've controlled the costs as much as possible. And there are definitely items. There have been vacancies. That's the biggest factor. But I think you'll start to see, for example, with the police, with the pension and some other things that were done, it's a question between trying to save some of the money or accomplish what you're trying to do. And the town is really getting to the point where you're gonna start to lose some of the things that you like and want because you just can't keep pace with those things. So,
No, I appreciate that, Kevin. I mean, you know, in the last few years, as you know, the wage opportunities has been $1 million to $2 million because whether it's turnover or not getting people on time or whatever. So I understand where you're coming from, but we've also seen
Yep.
some pretty sizable.
we hope we've turned the corner. I mean,
Yeah, I
planning
want
is
it to go
full,
away,
the
so you
police
guys have
are-
full staff.
yeah, the
you know.
police are on the cusp of hiring. The chief mentioned just today, 3 more people to be at 46. Planning, hopefully, knock on wood, remains stable where it is because we can deliver a lot more value for your economic development.
I mean, what I suggest is we can vote on each one, if you like.
If that's what you want, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say on the Department 61 contractual services, after seeing the list of how many
Yep.
different things go into that, I don't think I don't want to tie their hands, you know, and slow things down because they have to come back for a transfer or an additional appropriation. I think that one I certainly would not be in support of.
I'm with Jerry on that one, and I want to wait for a better answer for the question that Tim answered about the OT, which I think we can actually vote on the annual hearing before we can add or.
Okay, why don't we just,
Do you want to make the 4 motions or no?
why don't we just, you know, think about it some more, ponder it, and then we can discuss it, you know, after the forum.
Yeah, that's, I think
That's
that's
fine.
a good idea.
I'm okay with that. Go ahead. Okay.
It was towards the end of one of our previous meetings, when it was brought up that, and here I go again, VNA, that a nurse position was moved out of the VNA budget into school services, into Department 61, to be the head, to be a supervisor.
The VNA administrator cost was split 75% VNA.
That was one item, but there was another one where they said they were moving a position to be the supervisor of all the school nurses.
Existing school nurse.
An existing one, yes, moving it from one budget to another.
Oh, it was all in 61.
Oh, so it's coming out of nurses to be a supervisor within 61. So it was,
You looked at the staffing list on the presentation, you'll see it was -1 in Department 61
okay,
for the.
all right. It came across in my mind that it was going from the VNA budget to the school budget. Okay, answered. Thank you.
I think that covers, unless there's any other questions on the town, I think that covers the town. Now we get to the real, discussion on the Board of Education. See what you put together, Kevin.
It'll be slightly different by leaving the golf course.
No,
mower in,
not a
but
problem. Yeah,
Marginally different.
Can we give a quick recap of where we were with our numbers?
sure. Let's give a recap. Think Tim and George and myself were at 2%. Jerry was at 3.2%. Raul, I think you were at 4.2%.
I was at 3, yep.
And Denise said she was anywhere between 3.2 and 3.5.
Okay.
So what I did was I updated my special sheet that I like to update.
More homework. Yay.
I have a couple extra ones if you want. Has everybody got? Yeah. So again, the premise I use is FY 24, the actual budget. And the position that was presented last time, we took 500,000 off of FY 24 and did a projection of 50,355, escalated, 3%. to give you that first option, position one, which in effect is a 2% increase over FY '24 because I'm backing out the 500,000. Okay? Position 2 and 3 is just reducing, you know, the cost, what I consider, you know, potential cost surplus to 250 and 125. And then coming up with a new projected cost. And that results in a 2.5% increase on position 2 over the FY '24 budget and a 2.75% increase over the FY '24 budget for position 3. Okay, so all I'm really saying is that if I'm only taking 125,000 on position 3 out of the budget, saying they're gonna achieve better than, you know, they're gonna have 125,000 left over. That's kind of mine. Okay?
But likely to be more.
Huh?
But likely to be more, obviously.
That's why I started with
For the,
that one.
per your paper, yeah,
I mean, so,
okay.
and so, you know, I mean, I'm comfortable with the 2% we offered. I'm comfortable with the 2.5% that is in there. You know, the statistics really show it. You know, if you look at the last 6 years, they continue to ask more than what they get. Then when they get what they get, they have residual funds left over. I mean, I know I shared the charts, you know, the other night. Oh, Raul, is that yours? Yeah, sorry.
Mhm. Right?
Okay.
This is the right one, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, in the last 6 years, they had a requested increase average of 4.53%. We approved an average increase of 2.5%. Those are the charts that I showed. And even with the 2.5%, they had close to 2% left over, whether it's, you know, carryover of open choice funds or budget surplus. I mean, these are the facts that I can go on. I mean, the thing that I struggle with is you ask budget questions, they don't completely answer the questions, or they don't answer at all. There is no budget performance that you can really track on the current year to really understand where they're at. You know, so all I can judge it is based on the past historical experience and looking at, you know, how I come off of FY '24. That's where I'm at. That's just my opinion. You know, the last year that they closed out, FY '23, they asked for 4.67%. They got 2.5%. And they had almost $1 million of carryover from open choice and another 400,000 of cost surplus.
Wasn't that million from the ARPA that we told them to save?
No, the 441 was true cost. And then the 600 or so thousand was open choice fund remaining.
All right, so
I mean,
I, like, from last year to 2 years ago, there are no more ESSER funds. We just talked about the inflation that we're all suffering, the contractuals that we signed with the unions. Based upon what the superintendent put on his budget, it needs 4.2. Okay? I see that we disagree.
well, no, but in the case, my case,
Yeah.
by reducing it by only 125,000 or even 500,000, it's, to me, it's conservative.
But that's the money that he needs at the end of the year to pay for the salaries of open
I'm
choice
just looking
in
at
September and October.
the danger.
So
we
it's not
have-
really a surplus. Sal.
Danger we always have, we always go to budget. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's my opinion.
Okay.
Go ahead, Raul, I'm sorry.
no, you didn't interrupt me. And I think we've discussed this at length the last meeting. I don't think we're gonna see eye to eye on things on this one. And then I completely still respect the heck out of all you guys. You guys have a strong point, but honestly, so do I. I think I have a very strong point as well.
Well, what's the basis of your 4.2?
The superintendent, he's the expert.
But he asked for 5.67 last year,
Five.
or 6,
5.8,
okay?
5.8, whatever it was.
Right, we
Yeah.
gave him 3.67. They told the public that they would have to make all these cuts. Come on, they told the public they have to make all these
Mhm.
cuts in order to achieve the 3.6. They didn't make any cuts. They added positions. So how do you expect me to understand what the
From-
base number represents?
From his explanation, he said that there were some positions that left and they hire other people. He moved money around. Honestly, is what a CEO does. We're in the business, like I move money from budgets to budgets almost on a weekly basis. Honestly, I think he did a good job in doing it. Do I agree with the ways that it was done and not communicated? Maybe not so much. But I'm just going through what, quote unquote, the expert, which is the superintendent, what he needs. Contractuals says 4.2. So,
Okay. So your basis is really what the superintendent says. That's okay. Denise?
Well, I think last week or whenever we were here, I think it was 2 weeks ago now or whatever.
last week, yeah.
Yeah, I get confused. I listened to both sides and I think you're both right. And I think that in a perfect world, they would get the 4.2, but I have to be a realist and see that they do move money around, that they have to because they don't always get the whole amount. People leave, they hire at a lower rate, things happen, but it concerns me that the funding that was there from either the feds or the state or somebody else is not coming. So that's why, I maybe am splitting the difference with the 3.2. I feel a little more comfortable. And to George's point, the optics, I think, at a 3 or a 3.2 are a lot better for passage than 2 or 2.5. I think it's just psychological. I also think that there are an awful lot of people out there that don't have children in school, but they do appreciate the school system, so they don't want to go so low that it hurts the schools, or they perceive that it hurts the schools, or they're told that it hurts the schools, but they also don't want to go all the way to 4.2. So I think that gives the people that are going to go out to vote at any referendum, and I don't think you do your budgets for referendums, but the 3.2, I think, is something that people could live with that don't have people in school or that may have still gone through the school system and want them to get something.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Denise, but I guess from the optics perspective, I don't think 3 or 3.2 is going to do anything from an optics perspective with the parents. They're the ones that go out and vote. We settled on 3.6 last year, but we came in at the first budget referendum much higher than, what did we come in, Sal? Do you remember? It was over 3, right? So we had those optics last year. We didn't come in at like 2 or 2.5 last year. We came in the highest we had been in a period of 5 years, and they still shot it down.
Period of 10 years.
Period of 10 years.
No, we came in at 3, right?
Which
I
was
thi-
the highest
I think it was at 3.
1.2 for
I think it was at
10
3.
years.
So we were at 3. So
And there was still a budget battle. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't affect anything. The optics, no matter what we approve, there's gonna be a battle on it. All I'm looking at is every year we approve the budgets and every year they have a surplus. It's not big surpluses. I mean, they do a good job in moving money around, but that's their job. And our job is to look ahead and to see what they can do and to more or less kind of push them into this. And it's working. They're turning out $1 million surpluses. So how do we just blanket give them more money? I mean, I look at the 2% and we would be, I would call it cutting them a little close. The 2.5, I'm comfortable with the 2.5. Based on, I mean, this is my 5th budget and honestly, I feel like I got hoodwinked the first few because I went, geez, these guys really need the money. And it just didn't materialize. And last year was a really good example of that. We had a fight over this and we had parents up in arms because of this, of charts and graphs that the Board of Ed was showing everybody. And not only did that not materialize, they popped the surplus. I mean, it's just, we can't rely on their information, and it's sad, it really is. We should be able to count on them, like, we can sit here with a Roche and discuss these numbers and work something out. And we don't have that with the Board of Ed.
Kevin, do you know what the,
When the whole year was over,
FY '23?
approximate number is $2,000.
Yeah, FY '23? That's not the case.
Surplus at the end of.
FY '23. Well, they took $441,000 of surplus and they reallocated it somewhere.
Right, as I'm saying, when
Okay.
all was said and done, it was.
Of course, they're gonna, but there's a report that actually says they took 441,000.
Why don't, but Jerry, it's the question, where did it end up at the
Okay.
very end after everything was done?
And then the $600,000 of,
That's totally, that's.
but that's available monies that they didn't use.
Okay, but that's not really money that they use, money they're saving for the first quarter to pay salaries. So you can't cut a surplus.
They have
Like-
that same money every year.
I think you just killed a stink bug.
I did. Okay.
All right. Sorry, guys, that was a little. Oof.
Kevin, do you know,
I was being very literal.
I have a question if I could ask.
Go ahead.
Kevin, do you know what it gets lost here because of the grand list money that we have and whatever, but if it was 3% or 2.75, whatever the number, you know what that is from a combined perspective? Because I'm still concerned about what the overall is. You know, pretending they're two separate things doesn't help the taxpayer. They are really one and the same thing. And I think we need, you know, they only see a bottom line number. They're not looking at, this is the town side, this is the B.
This one here, this page.
Which
here.
one?
On the bottom? On the
Not the
bottom?
mill rate. I want to know what the percent increase is in the budget.
I mean, Kevin, you can plug that into
I
this, right?
understand
If I take away 1,853, which I think, Sal, that's your reduction to get to 2.75, right?
Right, correct.
If I put that in for Board of Ed, with the cuts you've already made, not the 200,000 for the town, but all the others, you would have a 2.2% increase in the mill rate, 0.65.
not in the mill rate, in the budget.
Oh. 3.22
Okay.
overall.
And the mill rate would be at
2%.
approximately 0.6 would be the increase on the mill rate for the whole budget,
0.65, yes.
0.65.
You go from 2956 to 3021. That was the 2.75. That was that reduction, just a flat 1,853.
I mean, we had close to like $2 million or 1.9, I don't remember the number, 1.9 million in revenue increases because of the grand list growth.
Yeah, about.
Right, something like, whatever. So I mean, we can't lose sight of that too. That's, so we don't
That's
want
in
to
this
just focus on the mill rate. I want to look at what the overall budget is going up, because that's something we have to sustain year after year. That gets baked into next year's. So, you know, trying to keep inflation to around 3%. That's what the feds are trying to do. We should be working somewhat in concert with that.
Well, that being said, though, that's why I go back to my 3%, because if inflation is 3%, I know I'm being very overly simplistic, but that's what they're going to need.
Well, again, the taxpayer doesn't care about the two numbers, they care about the number.
Right.
We're at 3.22 at 2.75 for the overall increase in the budget. So your 3% will make that even higher.
3% would make it 3.35. Sorry, I know it's kind of small.
3.35, and what would the mill rate roll to?
Sorry?
What would the mill rate?
That's at 3%?
3%. Mill rate would be 0.69, so you would be
0.69
0.04 mils higher at 3% versus.
The chair, may I ask a question? Denise, your 3% increase, are you comparing it budget to budget or projected actual to budget? Because there are two different scenarios here.
I would say that I'm doing budget to budget.
Oh, so then it's 2.7.
I'm doing, well, I'm doing the year over year increase.
Yeah, but this one is going off from projected
No,
24.
the 2.75 is budget to budget.
Yeah,
25.
and I'm saying 3 then instead of 2.7.
If we could,
Okay.
if we could trim a little bit on the town side, even half a sales list and be in that neighborhood, I would be good with the 2.75, but that would really be it.
Could you do 3 if with the,
It's not enough of a difference. We can't hammer the
that's
town
what I'm
too much.
saying, though, it isn't enough. It's, the difference up is not that much either. You know, you're looking at it, it's not that much.
It's
of a difference.
$125,000 difference. Well,
You-
I can say the same thing to you. It's $125,000.
We're looking at it this the different
So,
way.
Yeah. I'm looking
saying
from
the same
bottom
thing.
up, you're looking from the top down,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
You are.
Is it time to make a motion?
But I'm coming from 2%.
Right. I hear you.
So, I mean, that's a substantial, I don't care if you want to round it up to 2.8. But that's the only number I would really, I wouldn't go any different than that.
I would like to.
Sal's gonna be mad at me for saying that,
No.
but,
I would move it.
Get mad.
no, I know you know what I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Get even, no, no.
Sal, I think.
I would like
Denise
to
wants
make a motion to increase it 3%, just to have a starting point so that we can, a 3% on the Board of Ed.
Second.
Those in favor? Oh, discussion? Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
You said
No.
no. So it's 2 to 4, not pass.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to increase it 2.75%.
Second,
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
aye,
Those opposed?
So it's 3 in favor, 2 opposed, 1 abstention. The 2.75 passes.
Yes, yes.
I abstain because I don't think we're gonna come to a number. And looking at the charter, section 7.4 says if we can't agree on something, like we just did 3 votes all night, we would have to pass on last year's budget to the hearing and then possibly on to the council. I don't think anyone thinks that it's rational and reasonable to be starting with last year's budgets. So I think for the process of moving this along, we'll take it to the budget hearing and we'll hear what people say, and we still have a chance to change it.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, you just have the 3 pieces on the agenda to move to send each budget to the budget hearing. So the Board of Ed number, this scenario would be. Sorry, it's also behind you.
In front, but we can't see this.
I can't find anything anymore.
It's $52,252,092. 52,252,092. Better. Column D would be Board of Ed, column C would be general government. The next one is general government, which is 50,570,442. Eight, 287,469. That's not in the general government, it's voted together, but it's actually separate. 8,287,469. Water control, that's a proprietary fund, so it's.
Okay, I make a motion to move to send the Board of Education budget of $52,252,092 to the annual budget hearing.
Second,
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
aye,
Aye. Those opposed?
Raul and Denise, did you vote? You're good. So it's 5-1, Raul's opposed.
Okay.
Move to send the general government budget of $50,570,442 to the annual budget hearing.
Second?
second,
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
aye,
Okay.
6-0, just for purposes of the minutes.
Yes.
Move to send the Berlin water control budget of $8,287,469 to the annual budget hearing.
Second?
second,
Discussion? Those in favor?
aye.
6-0.
Move.
So
Okay.
I just have a question relative to the charter. Are these really 3 separate votes? I don't think it's,
It's one budget. The attorney was I actually got
Okay.
an opinion today.
I'm just curious.
It's considered one budget, so if either the general government or the Board of Ed did not move forward, the entire.
That's what I
FY
thought.
24 budget would move
Okay,
forward.
That's what I thought.
So they're bifurcated votes, but it's one budget.
Okay,
Yep, yep.
that's what I thought.
Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn?
second,
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Yeah. 6 o'clock. 6 PM, yeah. Berlin High School.